This is Digital Perspectives with Brad Kimes. Subscribe for new content notifications. Now, here's Brad Kimes. Come on in.
Welcome back to the show, everybody. You can follow me on Twitter at BackupBradleyAbove and everything that we're talking about here today. Let's get right into this thing. So we're going to talk about some news about blockchain voting. We're going to talk about a little thing here about taxes as a reminder, and I think it'll be a good idea to have Clinton Donnelly, the crypto tax fixer, back on this show very soon too, because of the deadlines for taxes here in the States. Another thing we're going to talk about is these banks that are building these CBDCs and why, and then we're going to talk about Ripple Swell and a little bit of the images that were shown during Swell, and that's pretty compelling too. So let's go ahead and get started here. First, we start with Clinton Donnelly here. Shout out to you, my friend. Find out why an old law is still relevant for using like-kind exchange for crypto returns before the 2018 tax year. Now, listen, there's nobody out here I've come across that really has a better handle on what's going on with crypto and tax implications. So there's plenty of links in the description and the comment box for anything you may want or need. Make sure you check them out. I use everything. I use Clinton. I use all these other things. So make sure you check all that stuff out for sure. Okay, so now moving on. The first presidential vote cast using blockchain technology. Now, this was actually discussed and covered a bit here on Fox News. I'm not going to play you the video or read you this whole article, but if you don't know, Brock Pierce from the token EOS is running as an independent presidential candidate. We were actually fortunate enough to interview Brock for the film Cryptonaires, and that's still in post-production right now, and we're getting closer all the time, although I'm sure you people are like, I want to see the movie. Well, trust me, we want you to see the movie too, but we want you to see a great movie. But at any rate, Brock Pierce gave an incredible interview for the movie, and I can't wait for you to hear some of the things that he had to say. But coming back to this is one of the issues that he's talking about, and one of the issues that has softly made its way to something like Fox, and it's about the mail-in voter ballots and whether or not it's legitimate. And I know that there's a split decision between two party sides here, and it's not my point to take a side or another. I just believe that ultimately, whether you're right or left, why wouldn't you want to see this technology, blockchain, used for something like this? Because you would have the immutable aspect of the ledger proving whether somebody's voted twice or not. So to me, I don't know if it comes through this year. I think it's a little too close to the election to see something happen this year, but I would say, looking onward beyond this election cycle, I would think at some point it would be a natural migration to do this. And I think, all parties being whatever, it doesn't matter where you sit, I would think that you would want that kind of clarity as well, no matter what you fight for. So let's keep this going, getting back to the banks where this is all coming home to roost. Ladies and gentlemen, what do we hear lately? Stable coins, central bank digital currencies, stable coins, central bank digital currencies. We keep hearing this narrative, whether it's from the banks themselves. We're thinking of developing it. We're actually piloting. We've got the regulatory framework. We're doing that. All these different stages of development are taking place around the world. It's not a mistake. Okay? And in my mind, it's not a mistake because the highway's built. Stable coins are like cars that allow you to get on and off the highway. Central bank digital currencies are much the same, whether you see it as a CBDC that stays back in for intra and interbank settlement, or whether you see it fully being developed with a public aspect to it. The reality is, it's like cars. And you really wouldn't start putting cars together for this unless you had the highway built. That's where I believe Ripple comes in. Now, is there speculation in that? Of course there is. There's speculation in a lot of what we do here because, in fact, if you are invested in this space right now, you, by default, are a speculator. because there's nothing concrete about any of this space, let alone one particular token. So it definitely takes your own effort to connect the dots to what you feel most strongly about. You know what I feel strongly about, but everyone makes up their own mind because we don't give financial advice. We just share insights and perspectives. But when I look here and I see Spain's central bank is making a digital currency research priority through 2021. And then we move forward here and see Bank of Canada. Sounds like they're ready to Mr. C. Central bank must have digital currency alternative if Facebook's Libra is blocked. And then it goes on through the article and talks about that being the catalyst and the motivation for it. Now, if you've been in this space any length of time, you know the Bank of Canada has been working with distributed ledger technology and Ripple specifically for years. Does this have anything to do with that back end? I don't know, but I tell you, knowing that Ripple and XRP are cited in the World Economic Forum, and the keynote speaker at Swell, one of which was the head of blockchain development from the World Economic Forum, who wrote a policymaker toolkit for the framework of developing central bank digital currencies that was given to the respective countries. In my estimation, and I'm not trying to sell a used car here, you think what you want. I just feel like it would be awful robotic of me to make the assumption or the speculative thought that it would not be involved. That's just me. But again, what makes this world great is you take in the same information. I take in the same information. We don't have to come out with the same outcome. What's beautiful about that is that I like seeing those different thoughts and insights, because that's where I feel like we get the best of each other. Is that you are able to think what you want to think, and I can think what I want to think. And I think in large part, I would like to be able to really say that I think that's where a lot of the success of this channel comes from, is because of the fact that every one of you have the right to say what you want here, as long as we're professional and courteous and give everybody else their own room to think what they think. So knowing that this is still taking development, this is happening. And then this came up a couple of days ago. At first, I didn't touch it. Okay. At first, I said, I'm not going to touch it because there was some demo slides shown of Bank of America at Ripple, but apparently it was made clear that those slides were older slides from an older demo using XCurrent, and they weren't really referencing on-demand liquidity. And we know that Ripple is working to some degree with Bank of America. That has been exposed for a long time. Michael McDaniel, in fact, had found the patents that broke months and months ago, and broke that in the Digital Perspectives Telegram group before taking it to Twitter. 2 days later, Brad Garlinghouse from Ripple was on Bloomberg having to answer to the rumor. That's how that happened. Don't believe it. It's still true. But the reality is does it mean that XRP is going to be used? No, because in the patents, XRP wasn't specifically mentioned. In the demo, XRP wasn't specifically mentioned, and the person that was talking went on to even further clarify that XRP wasn't mentioned. What I find interesting in this is just simply that, for me, knowing that the full suite of software products, along with the complement of the digital asset for settlement, gives you the greatest efficiency, the greatest scalability, and the greatest savings. Knowing that the customer base is financial institutions, banks, payment providers, remittance companies, you get the drill, small, medium enterprises, all of those entities are about getting the most savings that they can get. This really does come down to the regulatory clarity they need, or legislation they need in the respective areas. And I do really believe that we will get it. And I can clearly say, without standing on too thin of a limb, the reason the rest of the world hasn't taken off with the use and settlement in large part, or in great order of magnitude in the financial sector with XRP, is simply because they're waiting for the U.S. Because the U.S. is the largest economy. And it seems to me, if the rest of the countries are so far away advanced with the framework in regulation and legislation, why don't they just simply start using it? Because I don't think that they can. Because anybody that's bought OTC, XRP, in my understanding of the matter, is going to have a set of restrictions or at least guidelines that they're going to have to follow contractually, like you would with any contract that you would enter to purchase OTC. And I would imagine that that all comes with a set of standards that they must fill those things from their end. Ripple must continue to do the things from their end to make it a viable solution, building the market infrastructure, yada, yada, yada. You get the drill. I really do believe you get it. But at the end of the day, when I see these things stop short of saying XRP, or we see the software but not the asset, it is moving forward in my estimation. And believe me, I'm not trying to convince anybody. I'm just showing you my perspective, because Dilip Rao said with his time there, it was about getting them to use it, right? Or getting them to use the software, then getting them to use XRP, and then the Holy Grail is getting them to hold XRP. Well, we're already seeing Ripple open up line of credit to be able to get them to hold and use it and then pay back into those local currencies so they can build liquidity pools of cash to help deepen the liquidity for the utility making its way to the network. That, to me, is a win-win situation. So when I look at these things like the news and the demo that came out there, I think to myself, well, what do I see in the macro sense when I pull back, right? Okay, Bank of America, certainly Ripple's in the patent, certainly, Ripple's in the software for some of the things they're going to be using, right? We don't see XRP stated quite yet. I get it. It doesn't have clarity. So banks are probably really, really, besides NDA situation, I'm sure banks do not ever want to try to project in front of a regulatory agency. I know I wouldn't want to do that and get the cart in front of the horse and then have regulators upset with me because they feel like I'm out in front of them now trying to define what's what. And that isn't the way the world works. So, and I don't think it'll be long before we get the clarity we need. But at the end of the day, what I see here when I see Canada and I see this country and that country adding and putting in pilot programs and making these CBDCs and doing these things, what I see is it's coming. It's coming, and I think it's coming sooner than we think. Because what I'm paying attention to see where the narrative and the trend really flows from is these international organizations like the G20, right? I'm looking at the OECD to see what they do with their reports and recommendations to the G20, the FATF, FSB, right? Then domestically here in the States, the U.S. Treasury, FSOC, FinCEN, right? All of these different agencies that speak on it, the OCC, the SEC, and the CFTC. And hey, you know what? And in the interim, if we get the full floor vote on the Senate here domestically, and we get the legislation moved through, I'm sure it'll get signed, because ultimately there's an executive order here written that Ripple is actually stated in. Executive orders don't need anyone's approval. So the plot thickens here. And I have to say, knowing that the banks are up against the wall, and in the last Great Recession, the central banks bailed out the hedge funds and the mutual funds and all those things that collapsed. This time around, the hot potato is in the hands of the central banks, and they don't have anybody to turn around to. So I think it comes down to turning around to this technology and the ability to introduce a new commodity or a new currency like XRP, and to be able to build value in that by bringing utility and liquidity to the network and driving up the value in that so they can release the dormant capital from their nostro vostros, which go to the tune of $20-25 trillion. Let's see what else we got here before we get out of here, because I just want to make that point. And this really backs up that whole notion, because what are we talking about here when we're talking about draining these nostro vostro accounts, not having to pre-fund with other countries' dollars around the world in which companies do their business or banks? And what we're really talking about here is the flywheel theory. That's what the hell we're talking about. And I don't know if I have the picture here, and I don't. I did have it up, but I'll do this. And I don't think you can see it very well, but the flywheel theory is essentially a perpetual motion, right? It's where you get a buyback scenario kind of thing happening. And basically, Ripple has told you that they, in the second quarter, will begin to be able to, or to start buying off the secondary markets. Well, those are the exchanges that you and I buy on. And they've also told you that they're going to start lending out lines of credit of XRP. Well, that is going to help induce the perpetual motion of the flywheel theory, as well as remittance companies like MoneyGram, using XRP, making payments, and then every day turning around and buying back even more, because they know at some point there's going to be other remittance companies competing in the same corridors, settling with the same asset, XRP. This is when the flywheel theory really kicks into gear. And once you start putting competition using the same asset to settle in the same corridors, well, now we got real competition happening that is really going to propel that flywheel into motion. So that's what I wanted to hit with that. All right, that's going to do it for me, guys. I really do believe, I remain positive. I'm the eternal optimist, and I'll take the heat for it. And I'll make the video if I'm wrong one day too. But the reality here for me is that this, to me, feels a lot closer than we think, because I see more regulatory action and even legislation domestically here in the States, and certainly the collective effort on the international level, more than we have seen in the last several years. And in the last 100 days, we've seen this stuff. So this gets pretty good. And don't forget that the IMF is having their meeting right now, the 12th through the 18th, about external adjustment to dominant currencies like the US dollar, as well as many other things. So stay tuned for more information on that. All right, that's going to do it for me. Hit the like and subscribe. Leave a comment below. Make sure you click on the videos that you see popping up on the screen right now. And definitely check out the links below. All right, take care, guys, and I'll see you on the next one.